please welcome Ed Pawlowski and Vicki Kistler.
Well, good morning, everyone, and my name is Ed Pawlowski. I'm the mayor of the city of Allentown. Thank you all for being here. I tell you, after sitting here and listening to Dr. Dietz, I had the same sort of reaction. I am actually pretty depressed that I'm going to have to diet for 3 years to actually lose weight. I'm pretty confident that's probably the reason why I'm not losing weight at this particular point in my life. But I want to talk about, going from the overall sort of the global view of childhood obesity. I want to talk about childhood obesity on a practical level and what we've done in the city of Allentown. For those of you who don't know where the city of Allentown is, it's exactly opposite on the other side of the state. We are the third largest city in the state. It's Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and the city of Allentown. Geographically, in the city itself, we have about 120,000 people. In our region, it's close to 1 million, similar to how Pittsburgh and Allegheny County are situated. We were seeing a problem. And it was a problem within our schools, and it was a problem with our children, and it was a problem that I saw that was affecting our kids on multiple levels. Now, I wish I could say that we originally got into the childhood obesity issue because we looked at the data and we saw that an increase in childhood obesity leads to diabetes and heart disease and high blood pressure. That really wasn't the case. Maybe it was for Vicki, my health director, but for me it was my 2 kids are in public school, and seeing the decrease and really the sort of the decimation of funding on the state level for our schools, seeing the lack of investment, as you pointed out, in physical activity. In fact, most of our public schools have pretty much eliminated any sort of gym activities at all, any sort of physical activities. And just going to our schools and really seeing the kids and how overweight they really were becoming, prompted me, as a father and as a mayor, to go back to my health director, who's, I think, in my humble opinion, one of the best ones in the state, maybe in the country, and say, hey, Vicki, I think we got a real problem with childhood obesity, which she then said, oh, Mayor, I'm glad you're on board. We've been working on this for months now. And started sharing with me a little bit about the... is this how I change this thing right here? Okay. Green, gotcha. Started working, really looking at some of the numbers that were affecting our population and our kids, and it was alarming to me. 42% of our children were overweight or obese. The obesity rate in Allentown exceeded both the national average and the state average. 24%. 38% of our children in Lehigh County were considered obese, as opposed to 35% of the children in Pennsylvania as a whole, and 16.9% of the kids in the United States. Now, when I was flying out here, I was thinking of a story, and it was Allentown is much like Pittsburgh. We have lots of little communities. And so we have about 28 different communities and community groups. And when I was first running for office, everybody wanted to have a debate. And we had a gazillion folks in the race at that particular point in time. And I would go to debate every single night. My kids were very small. My 14-year-old was 6. And I remember coming home and I would at least try to read her a story. And one night after one of those debates, I came home, I started reading her story. She looked up at me, she said, Daddy, do all fairy tales begin with once upon a time? And I smiled at her, I said, no, honey, there's lots of fairy tales that begin with if elected, I promise. Now, I say that because I think there's lots of fairy tales also when you talk about childhood obesity, that if it's just diet, it's just caloric intake, and that's going to solve the problem. And I can tell you, being involved on a state level with mayors across the Commonwealth, being involved at the federal level with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, I think my colleagues think that as well. That if they just have dietary programs, that somehow that's going to impact our childhood obesity rates within our urban areas. And as you know, that is not the case. As we've just heard, that's not the case. It really comes down to change of lifestyle. It comes down to healthy alternatives, and even that, there's no easy solution. I mean, we're in many cases we're talking about changing culture, especially within some of our poorer communities. We have 40% of our population that's Latino. We have almost 14% that's African American. And when we're talking about changing cultures, especially within the Latino population, it is a very, very difficult task. And so what we've looked on, and we've tried to implement a number of programs, not only on the dietary front, on the policy front, on the physical activity front, and try to work across lines, break down silos within many of our departments within the city, and really look at this as sort of an overall strategy to really attack this epidemic in a significant way. And so as we get into this, what I want to talk about really is some of the approaches that we've taken as a city. Now, I'm going to go back. Can I go back? There we go. What we've done is really looked at a number of initiatives, and starting within our schools, and just like here in Pittsburgh, I have no control over our public schools. They're separate entities from the municipality. Many mayors do not have any control over their public schools. So all I can do is work with them, try to motivate them, gently push them along in trying to come up with strategies and policies that are going to affect these kids on a daily basis, and then try to create some sort of framework within the context of the communities as we're building them out that actually promote the healthy lifestyle. And so that's what we've been doing. We've been trying to attack this problem on a number of different levels. The first one is really with youth interventions. We have some great dietitians within our health bureau. We've done a number of things like overweight youth counseling, shape up after school fitness class that are designed to, again, because the school district wasn't basically investing in any sort of physical activity or classes for physical activity. In fact, in our schools, I don't know how they are here in Pittsburgh and here out west, but in our schools, because of the budget cuts, they've pretty much eliminated gym. We have no gym, we have no physical activity within our schools. So it was up to us as a city to have to recreate some of those aspects to actually promote some physical activity within our schools. So we started an after-school program. We provided youth counseling for those kids who are overweight. We work with the school nurses and our health institutions, Lehigh Valley Hospital and St. Luke's, who also were providing services within our public schools, to basically work with those kids who were extremely obese and provide them with the counseling that they needed. We also encouraged before and after school programs. We had, knowing that we have this whole craze now when you watch the Food Network on cooking, we found that kids like to cook too. And so we started a Healthy Careers Club for students to participate in healthy cooking, and we had demonstrations. We even have a program, which I'll show you in a second, that we had a contest for them to create healthy meals, and we had a number of local celebrities, of course I was one of them, who got to taste the meals and sample the meals, and the kids loved it. It was a great program and really got them involved, not only in cooking, but also to be able to translate back to their families. This is what healthy cooking is. This is how you change that culture. This is how you change that lifestyle. Also, we had a Health Careers Club, which is a program for middle school students, and it's designed to get them interested in the health field. They do yoga classes. They talk about the health industry in general, and really starting to get them involved in potentially pursuing careers in health. We did a reality show, as I just talked about, Came Alive. We had Teen Healthy Chefs, where we did this contest for them to create healthy dishes. And they were all served by those students, and each school participated and competed against each other. I had, the really difficult task of having to eat like 6 meals. But They were all great. They were all good meals. And but again, it was to get these kids involved in changing their mindset and hopefully transmitting that information back to their parents that would help to change lifestyle and culture. We also got them involved in other types of physical activity because we found out that they just didn't want to come. I don't know how. I have an 11-year-old and I can't get him off his Xbox. I think he's physically, his hands are physically glued to that game controller. In fact, we went on vacation this summer. We went to the shore and he didn't have an Xbox and I, at the end of the week, I took his hands and I said, he's like, "What are you doing, Dad?" I said, "Are they shaking? Because, have you had withdrawal from this Xbox for a week?" Of course, he kind of looked at me, and walked away. But what we found is that, we got to figure out how to break that cycle of these kids that are just coming home and sitting down and, in front of the TV for hours on end, getting no physical activity. We did these after-school activity programs, as I showed you in the slide before. We realized that wasn't enough. Some kids just didn't want to come. And so we tried to mix it up. With the Allentown School Foundation, we started a program that was called Mad Hot Ballroom that actually, building on Dancing with the Stars, got the kids involved in dance. And they loved it. Especially our Latino youth. They loved it. They got into it. We had a number of kids who were involved. We had a competition between the schools. It was a great program, but it also got them involved in physical activity in a way that they would never have been involved before in the past. Excuse me, technology, there we go. But we also had to change policy and environment. And so we've tried on multiple levels to affect policy change both within the school system as well as within the community, affecting the community groups that serve youth. And we've done this on a number of different levels. First off, we've changed, we started community gardens. Now, it's a modest program for us. And let me back up. We're a mid-sized city. We don't have a lot of resources. And we realized that this was a huge problem to take on. And it was going to require lots of time and energy and dollars from us as a municipality to do that. Now, we just didn't have the capacity, nor did we have the financing and dollars available within our municipal budget to really attack this in the way that needed to be done to really make an impact on this problem. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think there's lots of municipalities who are facing very difficult economic times, who are having to make choices of keeping police on the streets versus doing public health programs. And as you all know, public health programs usually end up being on the short end of that stick. And I didn't want that to happen. I mean, I was seeing it every day within our schools. We needed to make an impact. And so what we did is we tried to impact all our departments to work together to do this in a way that wasn't costing us a whole heck of a lot of money, but was having some incremental changes in their lifestyle, behavior, and hopefully changing some of the culture that was happening within our schools. So we had community gardens. We had one neighborhood garden, one true neighborhood garden that we started. We had two other children's gardens that we started around the schools that are actual gardens that the children are taking care of. We have two schools, two gardens within our high schools and done by high school and college kids. One church took up a true community garden, and we have one international refugee garden. All these are active gardens. They're growing vegetables, fruit and vegetables. We're now working with the Rodale Institute, which is located near us. Rodale Publishing has a huge organic farming program, and they're actually working with us to do more community gardens and maybe even actually do community gardens to produce food for sale as sort of an urban farming operation. So we're working with them on that. Now, you have lots of mayors that talk about community gardens, okay? And I'm not going to tell you that we have this great gardening program that's all over the city because, many of those gardening programs, when you go on the ground and actually see them, they're not really gardening programs, right? They're little lots that they try to do a gardening program in. So we have actual, basically 8 community gardens within the city of Allentown that are true community gardens. that are producing fruits and vegetables for the community and helping to provide healthier alternatives for those neighborhoods. The other thing we did is this thing called Fruits and Veggies on the Move. Now, we took the whole concept of a ice cream cart and we sort of turned it up on its head, and this is where the ingenuity of my health director, Vicki, comes into play. She had this idea of taking this program, taking fruits and vegetables out to the kids in the schools, in our playgrounds, in our summer recreation programs, and instead of just giving them ice cream, which of course we have lots of ice cream trucks, that come around, entice them with, healthy alternatives, with, oranges and cherries and things that would actually be good for them and reduce their caloric intake. We started this. We visited 21 city playgrounds. We went through a number of different schools. The kids love it. They love it. We have a big fruits and veggies outfit that our staff put on. We actually got an award from the U.S. Conference of Mayors, a $100,000 national award for our childhood obesity efforts in this area. They wanted me to put on this big, carrot suit, and I said, absolutely not. It's never going to happen. But we still won the award anyways. We had to do a video, and believe it or not, was from the U.S. Beverage Association. I know the irony in that. But we were able to then expand this program and even reach more kids. And it is a tremendous, tremendous effort to really get these kids out of the habit of just going to sugars. Just ending up trying to go to that ice cream cart, ending up going to that, soda machine, and really give them some healthy alternatives and bringing those healthy alternatives right to them on a daily basis. So in the summertime, when we have our summer recreation programs at about 26 different parks, we're actually out there with this cart on a daily basis, giving them these healthy options. And it's been a tremendous success. And I have to tell you, it was funny because when we got the award, the United Beverage Association came out and they wanted to give me this big check. And of course, I'm taking this big check and I'm saying, don't, make sure you don't drink soda, and everybody's like, shh, Mayor, don't say that, water, and I said, and they bottle water too. So we also then wanted to change the overall activities. And so we built a destination playground. And what I mean by that, it's a actual 50,000 square foot playground. It's one of the biggest playgrounds I've ever seen. But it also has a youth exercise trail that's attached to it. And what we found is that if you incorporate play into exercise, kids love it. And it is so popular. I mean, we usually have hundreds and hundreds of kids on a nice day, especially on the weekends, that are coming not only from the city, but from all over the region to utilize this playground and to exercise and to really spend some activity outside, getting some physical activity and utilizing our playgrounds as a means to promote that physical activity. We also were able to secure one of 3 national awards for a program called Imagination in a Box, in which we have these great big foam things. I don't know what you call them, but they're huge things that we pull out. We take them to schools. We take them to parking lots. We pull these big foam blocks out, and they can actually build their own playground. And so again, it's giving them different ways to engage in physical activity, using their imagination, and getting them involved in some sort of a way to basically change their lifestyle and their pattern, getting them away from basically the games that they're looking at on a daily basis. We also have tobacco-free playgrounds, and I know it has nothing to do with childhood obesity, but I just throw that in there just because it's obviously part of our overall health strategy. And we started changing our policies as well. We focused on changing the policies. We have 6 basic nutrition and physical activity policies for youth-serving organizations, which means they have to have 60 minutes of physical activity on a daily basis. No screen time for children less than 2 years of age, and limited screen time to 1 to 2 hours for older children. No sugar or sweetened beverages, low-fat milks, water throughout the day, fruits and vegetable meals at meals and for snacks. We've been able to get 19 different organizations to sign up to this policy. We actually give them an award in recognition from our health bureau to encourage them to continue to promote this through their organizations. These are after-school groups. And this year, we're going to be, as we give out our dollars, we give out substantial dollars every year through our Community Development Block Grant Program to a number of different agencies. This will be a criteria for them in the scoring process to get those dollars from the city. So we're trying to change, not only through physical activity, through dietary means, but also through policies, the overall results that are happening that are leading to obesity, and we're doing that at a number of different levels, not just in our schools, but also in our organizations that are serving our youth throughout the city. We try to encourage a culture of walking and biking. We have a Safe Route to Schools program. We have our Connecting Our Communities program, bike racks, Share-O lanes that we've put in throughout the city. Our Safe Route to Schools program is a program that we've worked with PennDOT as well as the U.S. Department of Transportation, working with 14 elementary schools, 4 middle schools in Allentown to create safe pathways for them to be able to walk. So what we're trying to do is have a walking district as opposed to having them get on a bus, walking to school, getting that physical activity on a daily basis, and I think it's working. My daughter is 14 years old. She has to walk now. It really is almost a little under a mile to school, and it has made a difference in her. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen, the fact that every day that she's basically walking 2 miles to and from school. She hates it, by the way. I mean, but she's doing it, and a lot of kids are doing it, and it's having, I think, a positive impact both on their psyche and their ability to concentrate in school when they get there, as well as their overall physical activity on a daily basis. Connecting Our Community is a plan that we put into place. We have a large park system. In fact, we have the largest park system of any city our size in the country per capita. In fact, if we have over 2,000 acres of parkland in the city of Allentown, which is only about 17 square miles. The largest urban park in America is Central Park in New York, which is about 800 acres. We have 2,000 acres for a city our size. And so one of the things that we were trying to do was actually connect all these parks together so that you can walk through the entire city from east to west, north to south, and actually never have to leave a park. And so we're in the process of doing that. We have a few more miles to go, but hopefully over the course of the next 4 years, we'll be able to finish connecting the parks together and creating a true network of parks within our urban core. We also have bike racks. We've put 29 bike racks placed throughout the city, locations including schools and parks and community sites, again, to promote kids taking their bike to school. And as you can see from the picture there, it's really not working very well. But we try, and we try to encourage them. And all this has really got us 2 designations. We've been designated a Let's Move City for several years in a row, a Playful City USA for the last 6 years, and we're getting national recognition for many of these programs and initiatives that we're trying to put into place. Those are some of the things that we're doing on a city level. You don't have to have lots of dollars to implement these types of initiatives. You do have to have some strategic thought and some strategic planning as you're building out parks, as you're building out infrastructure, as you're coordinating with your health departments to integrate all these activities together, to realize you have to have a unified approach in really addressing this problem. And I wish I could tell you that after all these efforts, we've seen a major decrease, but we have not. When you look at the areas where we could, or BMI could be measured, girls are down by about 3%. Boys really haven't moved, which seems to be the national trend. But we keep trying, and it is a long battle. This is not a battle where we're going to get major victories. We're winning small skirmishes along the way, helping to change their lifestyles, helping to change their mindsets, helping to change cultural attitudes around eating. And I think over time we will be successful. But this is something that has to be really implemented on a long-term strategy. Now, saying that, that's difficult for cities to do, is it not? Cities and mayors are, you're 4-year terms, right? So you're not always looking at the long-term approach. But when you're really talking about epidemics like childhood obesity, it has to be a long-term approach that spans administrations, that spans political change. That's really, as you were talking about, a buy-in from the community as a whole. And until we get to that point, we're not going to see that type of systematic change happen within our urban environments, just because of the nature of politics within our urban cores. So I think our job, as Dr. Dietz said, is to really change the culture. I mean, we have to get our communities, our cities to buy into this, that this is something that's important, to own it. And if we can get them to own this, to realize that this is an important aspect of public health, then that'll span administrations and span political change and turnover, span one mayor coming in and saying, well, that was the last mayor's project, and I'm not going to take that up. That needs to change. That's where all of you come into the picture. It really is coming from the grassroots up. It's not coming from the top down. And to make that change, to make that wholesale change, it has to be from all of you pushing, that educational level up within the community as a whole to get the communities to buy into it as a long-term vision. If we do that, I think we will start seeing incremental change. If we don't, I think we're in for a lot more problems, a lot more health issues as these kids start getting older, and as this next generation of younger kids that are coming into our grade schools and middle schools are getting even more obese because of really lack of policy decisions to effectuate the change on a more systematic level. So I want to encourage you all. We've been able to take some incremental steps. I'm hoping those steps will last the test of time, but it's really all of you who are going to make the difference. It's not me as a politician. It's not the mayor of Pittsburgh or the mayor of Philadelphia. We can, use our bully pulpits to make, the push the charge. But it really has to be a systematic community change for it to really stick and make long-term impacts, because this is a long-term fight. So with that, I will stop talking and ask if anybody has any questions. Yes.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I love your program, the Fruits and Veggies on the Move. I'm just wondering how you funded the fruits and veggies before you got the $100,000. Was that grants or?
We actually took it. I mean, we have a nice new vehicle now, but we actually, it was a very innovative approach. This is Vicki, by the way. She's my health director for my health bureau. We took an old truck that we basically jerry-rigged. Had some magnets, some fruit magnets that they put on, which continuously flied off as the truck was going by. So they're now painted on the truck. But we used what we had available. We were able to, they sold me on the program. We got them a truck, from the Parks Department or the Public Works Department, just a flatbed, pickup truck, which they then painted and repainted for the Health Bureau. And as I said, they had these little magnets, and they literally did fly off as they were going down the street. But they then used the limited amount of funds that we had within the Health Bureau to buy those fruits and vegetables from local growers. Obviously, when we got the grant, we expanded it tenfold. But it could be done. It didn't need to be a lot of money. Now, we got the grant, we were able to get cherries and things that were really more expensive that the kids really liked. But before that, I don't know, we kind of did what with the dollars that we had, and they did a tremendous job in really being able to maximize those dollars, working with local growers and farmers markets, and being able to get the fruits and vegetables that they needed to actually take it out to the community. So it doesn't need to be a lot of money. It just needs to be some commitment from the city administration to make that happen. Back there.
Hi, thank you. I enjoyed your presentation. I think it's awesome. I think it's quite innovative and it's exciting. I do have to ask you, though, to go along with your daughter's fairy tale motto, if elected to governor, are you going to take these things on the state level?
I didn't even put you up to that one. I don't even know who you are. Yes, of course, absolutely. We have decimated funding for public health. We've really decimated funding for health and human services in general in the state, and we obviously need to get our focus back. And that focus needs to be on education. That focus needs to be on public health, because the people who are suffering are the most vulnerable among us. And it's not that the state doesn't have the dollars. We have dollars, obviously. We have other dollars that we should be tapping into, like, I don't know, taxing Marcellus Shale, which would bring us in. Thank you. Which would probably bring us in about $1 billion to $1.5 billion a year that we can use for public health programs, that we can use for health and human services, that we can use for education. So the answer is yes.
Question.
Yes.
An excellent presentation.
Thank you.
I like that you talked about the grassroots effort. I've heard a lot about policies and that, and public schools. Here in Allegheny County, Pittsburgh and Allegheny County, we have many Christian schools and other private schools that we need to connect in. Also, there's representation today from area in Pittsburgh and from the church. Is a very important entity, and other community groups, community organizations. I don't know how you've tied this in, but it's important that these messages come from trusted messengers to get people, even after these things are built, how will we encourage people to take advantage of these wonderful efforts?
I don't know if the lights went off there for a reason. Talking about the church, the lights go off. Yes, I think we're trying to get the churches involved. What we've done on a citywide level, just so you know, I think the churches are incredibly important. And these, they're really cornerstones for a lot of our communities, especially within the African American community, especially within the Latino community. And quite honestly, even within our ethnic populations. I mean, they are the community centers. In many ways. And so what we've tried to do is we have a faith-based initiatives program that I started on the city level, where we get pastors together. It's not easy, okay? I mean, there's a lot of parochialism that exists there. Even in a city our size, which is not that big, we have over 150 different, congregations, and some of them are just storefront congregations. And so trying to get them all together to really work together has been difficult. But what we have been able to do is work with them, not so much on the nutrition side, though you're starting, I think. You're starting to do that. On the physical activity side, I challenge them to and I actually used a story from the Bible. And I said, if you look at Nehemiah, he was a politician, he went back and he had to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. And one of the first things he did is he approached the religious leaders and had them all build a little section of the wall. And my challenge to them is, you guys need to build your little section of the wall. And that may be your block, that may be your neighborhood. And part of that is working together to really, change, so that if you have volunteers, because you're in a smaller church that has lots of committed folks, but you have an older denominational church on the block that may have a gym, maybe you guys need to work together to actually form a youth program. Well, believe it or not, it actually worked. They started a midnight basketball program called the Amen Initiative, the Allentown Mentoring Educational Network or something, I don't know. We were able to actually get some federal dollars for that. And what they do is they mentor kids. They do after-school programming, but then they let them play basketball. And they have this great now citywide network of midnight basketball leagues that they've developed. They've expanded now into our schools, and they started out with 50 kids, and I think they're up to about 400 to 500 kids. Now, obviously, it gets kids involved in physical activity, keeps them off the street at night. It gives them a mentoring initiative. And, I've seen, just by getting them involved in that type of activity, it's starting to bring some more collaboration between some of these churches who would never talk to each other, and also really starting to impact their communities and impacting the kids. I remember I was interviewing on one of the public radio shows one of these kids that had been through this, and her name was Janiqua, and she actually had dropped out of school. She, really troubled past. She was, because of that program, she was back in school. She was obese at one time. She actually got in shape. She's going to college to be a lawyer. I tried to talk her out of that, but she wanted to be a lawyer. And she turned her life around. Now, when I tell that story to these other churches, they start getting engaged because they can see how they can have an impact. So you can do it, but there's one effort that I think has to come down from the top down, because there is so much parochialism that exists between some of these churches. It took me, as sort of the non-church guy, the neutral party, if you will, to say, hey, you guys got to come together to really help us to start impacting the community in some of these ways. And when we did that, it made a difference.
Mayor? Over here, Mayor.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
all right.
Both people are
yeah.
waving at me at the same time. So.
Thanks for your presentation. I just wanted to ask you to elaborate a little bit more on the health career clubs. Is that in partnership with your public school system? Is it during school? Is it after school?
Yes, it is partnership with the public school system. The Allentown Foundation, Public School Foundation, actually helps to fund some of those. And it is a partnership with the schools. Some of it is done during school hours. Most of it is done after school. It's been a really successful program. We want to expand more. Of course, there again is dollars, right? We got to provide the dollars. That's where the foundation for the school district came into play, and is helping to raise the money to keep the programs like that going.
Professionals coming into
Yes.
the schools doing it?
Yes. We got really good buy-in. We have two major health networks, St. Luke's and Lehigh Valley Health Network, which is just like here. It's our major employers. Very big health networks. And I have to give them both kudos because they really do help out in providing the resources as well as staff time and volunteer time to help out with these programs. Doctors are very, they if you give them something to do, that clearly came out wrong, but I find that if you give them opportunities to volunteer, they will volunteer, and they're in it because they want to help people, and we just had to provide them the opportunities and the means to do that, and we had lots of folks step up to the plate to help out and work with us on that program. And again, it didn't take a lot of money; just took some staff innovation to pull it all together.
Hi. I really enjoyed hearing about the multifaceted approach that Allentown is taking, and I'm curious if at the city level you've thought about the approach of decreasing access to unhealthy foods. There's a lot about physical activity and a lot about increasing the influx of healthy foods to kids especially. I know there's an initiative happening in LA that to limit the growth of fast food franchises, for example. I'm curious if at the city level you all have thought about how to decrease access to unhealthy foods, especially given that they're less expensive and pervasive, especially in low-income communities.
We have, there's two. I mean, that's a complicated issue. Okay, I am not LA, and I'm not New York, and I'm not Philadelphia. I'm Allentown. All right, and Allentown was like a lot of other Rust Belt cities. 8 years ago, we were declining, and our economy was declining, and so forth. And we've built ourselves back up. We have $1 billion worth of investment. We got thousands of jobs coming in, but that was after a lot of hard work. And so, when you think about regulations that are restricting, let's say, like Bloomberg, okay, we're going to, restrict big gulps. I like it, okay? I mean, but I mean, practically, when you're talking about a city that, is striving to maintain, every job and every type of, in every type of industry, it especially in sort of a blue-collar city like Allentown, it doesn't play real well. You can't really get folks to buy into that on a citywide level. And so you got to look at other ways to affect this problem. Now, on the school district level, they're reducing the amount of, I think they've changed, if I'm not mistaken, all their vending machines, right? And they've taken sodas out. They have more healthy drinks. Our dietitians have worked with them on. We got a grant from the CDC. We were one of 10 communities that got a grant from the CDC to work with them to have policies in place to change their menus, and that has been done. But I really like, McDonald's and I guess nationwide has now put their caloric count on there. I like that approach. I really think it works. I mean, it works for me. I can tell you that. If I'm going in and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to get a frappe and that's like 800 calories. I'm probably going to end up not getting the frappe. You know what I mean? Or maybe I'll get the frappe without the chocolate and the whipped cream on it, and tell myself I'm being healthy. So it does have an impact, and I do think if we could have a more standardized approach, but as was said, it's difficult to do because some of these are proprietary. It's difficult to do on a citywide level for enforcement. You don't want all your restaurants up in arms. Talking about how you're going to drive, because if it's not done on a community-wide level, their argument is going to be, well, you're going to drive businesses out of the city because, folks don't want to see that, and it's going to lower my, my sales, and and I don't know, maybe I just don't, I don't know if that's true or not, but those are the arguments that you're going to get, and for an economy like ours, which is now just coming back. Incremental changes like that is a real tough sell to an overall population as well as your city council. It's just really tough to make those policy changes at that level, that broad a stroke. So what we've tried to do to answer your question, I know it's a long answer to your question, but to answer your question, we've tried to do it at an incremental level. Working with the school districts, having some incremental change, getting these grants like we got from the CDC to really start, making some incremental policy changes, and maybe in the future we'll as a community, have enough buy-in to be able to make wholesale changes like that. But we're just not there, and I don't think a lot of communities are there. I just don't think they're there. We need to get there. And again, it goes back to that grassroots, level. We need to change the culture to get people there, but I just don't think many of our cities are at that point.
Good morning, Mayor. My name is Laura. I coordinate the Easton Weed and Seed program, so I'm that grassroots level. Mm-hmm. I'm interested in something you said about, you said the Allentown School District, they don't have physical education in their classes anymore, yet you were able to implement the safe routes to schools and with the kids walking. We've been trying in Easton for years to do that. And I'm just wondering, who was the driving force behind that communication with the school district, since you didn't have really any effect with the physical education classes?
Me. I drove some of that, as well as, we were able to get some of our major donors involved. So we got the United Way involved in that, and they really were involved in our Safe Kids at School. They were involved in, what's that program that we didn't get the grant for? The federal program. Remember? No, yeah, but the one that the United Way and stuff are involved with. I'm having a little side conversation here. Okay, forget it. But anyways, we were going after a federal grant, and we were able to get these folks involved. So we got all our major foundations involved, as well as the United Way, as well as the school district. And that made a difference, okay? Because obviously the major foundations also helped to fund some of the things that were happening in the schools at other various levels. And so the school district really started paying attention to that, and because of that, we were able to get a number of initiatives enacted and pushed forward. But it wasn't until we got some of these other stakeholders involved as well that we really saw some real incremental change. Plus, I mean, I have a decent relationship with our school superintendent, school superintendents. We've had a number of them, of course, the last couple of years. And they've all been good relationships, and, and I think that helps. It doesn't help when the city and the school district are fighting with each other, because we're all in this together, right? I mean, we're what happens to the school district obviously impacts the city, and what happens to the city impacts the school district, even though many of our communities, we don't recognize that on a daily basis. Yes? Okay. Anybody else?
Hello, Mayor. Annie Clark, York, Pennsylvania. My mayor works with you in the Conference of Mayors. One of the things that we did in York to change business was the Y development purchases properties throughout the city. And then in that, when they're developing new housing projects, they put in businesses. Part of the requirement of that business, because they're the leaseholder, is to dedicate 45% of the floor space to fresh fruits and vegetables.
That's great.
So in an urban environment, that's how we are changing, getting fresh fruits and vegetables into the city.
That's great.
The second thing we did is
Send me that policy. That'd be nice.
I will. That's actually Larry Richardson. So I work for a charter school. We created the Hope Street Garden and Learning Lab. But what we did was we actually incorporated the garden on its own. So this way we were able to bring in private schools, public schools, and charter schools to develop one initiative. Because it's its own corporation, we could take donations from churches and use government RDA property and still have all the schools there.
That's great. That's
So,
great.
I loved your presentation.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. No, seriously. I mean, there's, what I've learned, there's nothing new under the sun, and, it's great to copy what's happening in other municipalities, and that's what I love coming to these conferences, and that's why I love going to mayor's conferences, because you're always, the same problems that we have in Allentown are the same problems you have in Pittsburgh, the same problems that they have in LA, the same problems they have in New York. And they're just different levels and more zeros attached to them.
Hey, over here. Kudos to everything that you guys are doing in Allentown. I'm a health and phys ed teacher, so I'm very interested in the school outreach and just wanted to know what the biggest pushback that you see is, because right now health and phys ed is not a core subject,
Right.
and it's not eligible for federal funding. So if a school relies heavily on federal funding, they're
I think you just answered your question.
Yeah, I know. But, who has been your biggest cheerleader? Has it been teachers? Has it been the administrators? Or do you have to go straight to the superintendent level to get things done?
I think the teachers and the students and the parents have been cheerleaders, but it goes going right to the superintendent. I mean, that's what it really takes many times. And, for me, having my kids in public school, it makes a difference because I'm seeing it on a daily basis. Like my kids, we live right in Center City, and I live in a poor community, and so my kids went to a school that probably 80%, 90% of the kids were on subsidized lunch, and I saw it firsthand. I mean, I saw the fact that these kids weren't having any physical activity. And so in my monthly meetings, with my superintendent's like, hey, okay, I'm talking as mayor, but I'm also talking as a parent. This is crazy. We got to have, you have no recess now. I mean, there's no gym, there's nothing. It's hard for me to fathom that, and we all grew up with going to gym, right? I mean, gym was my favorite subject. And now, my kid can't experience that, to have his gym as his favorite subject. And so it came from me pushing, but you're right, because of the federal funds, the Title I funds, and others that don't provide public education, and quite honestly, the fact that we've cut so much money out of education on the state level, they're having to make really tough decisions, and they're basically now teaching to the test. And so physical activity does not have anything to do with teaching to the test, right? And so that's the first thing to go. And it's really sad. And it's not just on the grade school and high school level, it's happening at the college level. I was just out in Clarion, and I was talking to a professor. They've eliminated all physical activity. They've eliminated art, sports, and literature. They have one professor now for arts and literature, and one professor for sports. Think about it. This is a state school. I mean, I don't know. I thought you were supposed to have a liberal arts education means you got a rounded education, liberal arts, right? And so it's affecting, I think, us on a lot of different levels. But it really has to do. You answered your question with the fact that, the funding scenario now is so that, they're having to teach this test. That's where all the resources are going, and physical education does not have any, it doesn't fit into that matrix. Because of that, almost every school district in this Commonwealth has cut it out. Probably pretty much every school in the country, I would imagine, is probably cutting it out as well. So I'd also go back and get a degree in, I don't know, math or something. Yeah, I know. I know it's illegal, and they say that, but you know what's happening. I mean, they're really cutting it. It goes down to like a half an hour, and they take them outside, in the parking lot, and that's supposedly phys ed, which is really recess, right? So yeah, I mean, I know that, and yes, I get that, but the practicality is that these school districts are faced with some really, really tough choices, and they're basically choosing to make sure that they have the resources to teach these kids the test so that they can get the additional resources from Title I and others to keep operational. And that's just the reality we live in. So we have to look for other ways to affect this. And that's why the Health Bureau got involved in this aspect as opposed to the school district. Because I just didn't want, I couldn't stomach just seeing that happen within our public schools, knowing that we have 42% of our kids that are obese. I mean, that's crazy. And so we had to take action on a different level, and that's why we got involved in this approach. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Great job by our speakers.